Jessica. Oh,
Okay, yep. All right, thank you. Bye-bye. One sec, I just gotta send an email quick.
very good. All right, I was just outside checking some inventory, but we had some questions out there, so it really led me into thinking, well, maybe we should talk a little bit about the production coordinator position a little bit, and exactly what this position does. It is really a centralized hub for communications, and what I mean by that is this particular job does everything from ordering materials by looking at the contracts and making sure everything is smooth there, answering questions that customers may have regarding scheduling. It could be the driver comes in, has to understand where they're going tomorrow. That's all part of this position. And when material comes in, questions regarding inventory, is it here yet or not? So when we're loading the buildings, if they can't find something, maybe it was delayed and it's coming in yet, and Jessica has all that information. But as I walked in, I interrupted her. She was working on the phone, obviously. She worked some emails she said she was sending. All that information comes through this specific office. So let's talk a little bit about your job, Jessica, and what kind of information comes off the contract. When do you make contact to the customers? What kind of information do customers typically ask you? Let's start with that.
So customers will typically call me if they can't get a hold of their sales rep. The sales reps are frequently in appointments and unavailable, so I can usually help with most of the questions the customers have. Also, it's a good idea for the customer to call me directly to inform us that their site prep is complete, concrete is complete, buildings torn down, anything that they're doing with the scheduling. That way I can let them know if they still have to make a payment or maybe a permit, something like that, if we're still waiting for any thing from them.
Okay, well that actually brings up a good point. So the salespeople are out there meeting with their customers. They're going to go through all the specifics of what the customer would like to have for a building. In that they go over the needs, what they're driving, what kind of building works best, and puts together all the numbers, works out the contract, gets all the specific information on the contract, signs the deal, and brings it into the office. Now, that is the work with the salesperson. But once it is a signed contract and comes in, and we're talking productive type of items, and that could be anywhere from excavation, concrete, or building.
Yep.
Once it is actually turned into the contract, it is much better for the customer to call you.
Correct.
Instead of their sales representative.
Yep.
A lot of times that sales representative is that link, and that's the feeling. However, once it's turned in, we have to remember that the sales representatives are out there meeting with many, many other people, and they don't have all the information at their fingertips. They would have to turn around, call Jessica to get that information. I'm one of those that skip the middleman. Let's get right to the information. And that's where Jessica comes into play. So
Yep, very true.
once the contract is in, I would rather, and I'm sure you would rather, for them talk to you.
Correct.
Now if they call, obviously you may not have all the information at your fingertips.
True.
So let's talk a little bit about that. They call and ask a question regarding the concrete crew, their timing.
Sure.
So what type of questions might they ask, and what do you have to do to gather that proper information?
Well, if they're calling, checking on the schedule, typically I'll have to call the crew to find out what their plan is for the jobs that are ahead of the customer questioning the schedule. And then I kind of work with them, get an idea of which days they're planning on pouring, and get back to the customer with the information. However, our concrete crews are busy during the summer and not always reachable by phone. So sometimes I leave a message and wait for them to call me back, which usually doesn't go more than a day, but it could go into the following next day.
Yeah, and that is a good point also. Yes, everybody nowadays probably has a cell phone on them. However, if Jessica's trying to get a hold of, I don't care if it's a building crew, an excavation crew, or a concrete crew. They can't always answer the phone. There's also safety aspects out on job sites. If you're working concrete and a concrete truck is there and you're placing concrete, I guarantee you a concrete crew will never stop everything and pick up the phone. They don't care about the phone, they care about that job they're doing. So it may take a while for them to have an opportunity to call Jessica back just in order to have that conversation to get the answers you're looking for.
Correct.
Okay. So that is definitely one thing that if you call here, yes, she has most information in front of her, but sometimes you might have to wait a little bit to get the proper information. Correct?
Correct.
So let's look at the opposite side. Let's say, for instance, the crew's on site and it says there's power on site, but they can't find a place to plug into because the tree didn't have an outlet in it. If you get that call, it's just the opposite. It's Jessica's job to try to find the customer and try to get some answers.
True.
Or maybe a salesperson knows something that they just didn't write on the contract, or
Right.
or some information that has to be figured out before the crew can proceed. Does that happen?
That does happen. Like you mentioned, in the case of a power or an outlet, the crew will call me and let me know they can't find it. I'll obviously try to call the customer. If I can't get a hold of a customer, then I call the sales rep to find out if they know any information. Obviously, I've left voicemails if I can't reach people, so it's a matter of waiting.
Okay, so we talk a lot of things that go on in this office. Can you think of anything else I forgot to lead into?
Oh, well, I also communicate with the yard and our builders, our outdoor builders here.
Okay. Yeah, and here at our facility, we pre-panelize walls. All of the product for specific jobs are all loaded onto trailers, and the information that they need to load it properly comes from this office. So she will run what we call a load sheet, and that load sheet has all the specific pieces and parts necessary for a specific job. That goes out to the yard, and that is how all of that is put together. Now that we've talked about loading, the other piece that comes in is material. And from materials are talking to vendors to order materials.
Yep.
And you get calls from drivers that are bringing material in to say what time they're going to be here. So that is another big piece.
Yep, I get the drivers that call. Sometimes they don't know how to get their materials to our backyard, so I am navigating them. Also, vendors call with great pricing on items that we use,
Sure.
and so I'm always purchasing something and working with them that way.
Yeah, and that's another good point also. I deal with a lot of the pricing as far as the planning guides that the salesmen use to work up these numbers. But Jessica's a key element because when she does the ordering, she keeps me informed of the pricing of the different materials on a continuous basis to so I can keep our prices up to date. So we are trying to stay as up to date as we can. If the prices certain products fall a little bit, believe me, that goes into our price book. They soften the price a little bit. Unfortunately, you don't see that very often.
No.
Not in this day and age, but we try to do what we can here. And when you put in orders, we also have special order items that are really specific to one job only. How do you handle those?
So typically I order the materials special for the job. You know, during COVID, we had a lot of issues with garage doors, where the garage doors were being back ordered for several weeks or back ordered several times. So then I'm given a new expected delivery date, which in that case I was having to convey to the customers as well.
That is true, and hopefully we don't see that again, because at some points, I think our worst one out was like 11 months, if I remember right.
Yeah. Yes.
Ridiculous. 11 months to get a piece of product. Obviously, we don't manufacture it, so we're kind of stuck in the middle. And, you know, the customer looks at us and says, you know, we're passing them over something. Believe me, that's not the case. We want everything off the board, done, and moving on. So that's the way we like doing things. So you are correct. That's a big piece of this also.
Yep.
Anything else you can think of that we haven't touched on?
I don't think so.
Sounds like you're a busy lady, so I won't take any more of your time. Well, and get called off of the job again. So I'm going to let you get back to what you do, and I'm going to go put my feet up on the desk.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Economy Garages.